Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and this week we are finishing up the conversation with Lindsey Williams that was started last week. She is answering your questions about learning a different language. She runs her company, Lindsay Does Languages, from the UK, and I was very thrilled to have her on. And the conversation was just so extensive that, of course, we had so much information, it needed to take up 2 episodes. So we're going to dive right back into that. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Girl is good. Okay, so next question is, and you were kind of touching on this before, what apps, sites, or programs do you like best when helping learn another language? Or if you're choosing to learn a language, what ones have you used? What would you recommend?
Okay, which ones have I used? Probably 90% of them, because I like to test them out and see, before I recommend stuff. In terms of what I use regularly, there is a page, maybe 2 little screens, so like sort of 10 to 20 on my phone. Duolingo is the big one, big obvious one that most people probably have heard of, but there's lots of others as well. So Drops is really good for single vocab. If you're learning vocabulary about a particular topic, Drops is really good for that. It's also got good travel based stuff, so like essentials and starter words and stuff. And Memrise is great too. So if you are learning a language and you want to, it's very, I think, conversational, I would describe it as. So things like, oh, no worries, and what's up, rather than like, how are you? I am fine, thank you, and you. It's pretty cool like that. And I really like Closemaster as well. So that's another app I would recommend. Lyrics training is another really good one. So like I said, make it fun, right? Lyrics training kind of gives you a close exercise, like a gap filling exercise for lyrics to loads and loads of songs on there. So that's a good one too. Then there's, if you've got a course, in terms of courses, I like Teach Yourself a lot. They work for me really well. And their audio, they have an app. So their audio lessons are on the app. So you don't need like a CD player or a cassette player like in the old days. Even now, if I go to the library, I think there's probably still a couple dusting on the shelf with cassettes in the box. I don't own a cassette player, surprise, surprise. So yeah, their audio is on the app, which is really useful. And colloquial courses too have their audio online. So that's something worth knowing. If you're learning a language with less resources available, then definitely, first of all, check in all of those places first, because it may be that there is something still out there. For example, when I was learning Guarani, there's a Duolingo course for that, for a language that a lot of people, when I talk to about, they've never heard of it, right? Understandably so. But there's a Duolingo course taught in Spanish,
awesome.
But it exists. Pretty cool, right? So look in all those places first as well. But then also Live Lingual Project. They have a whole load of old PDFs from, I get the initials the wrong way around, but one of them is military, the FSI, the DLI, I think.
Oh yeah, DLI. DLI is the language learning place for the United States military. That's where they teach foreign languages. Yeah,
that's where they teach, and they have a really good kind of track record of teaching languages really well as well. So their kind of old PDFs are available for free on there, and also from the Peace Corps too. So there's loads on there for languages that maybe are lesser studied, lesser heard of, lesser known. So that's a really useful resource. There's a lot. If I haven't shared it already with you, Sam, I'll share my list of resources.
Please do. I'll put it up on the Facebook.
I recently did another one for podcasts. There's like over 800 podcasts in over 123 languages. So there is so much out there. I've done all the hard work of finding it for you. So now you can easily filter by language and stuff and get straight to it.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, I would love that. Send the list. I will make sure I put that out for listeners. I think those resources are always great. And it's really awesome that you use DLI. A lot of military families are familiar with DLI. So yeah, I didn't realize that their stuff was available on the internet. That's really good to know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like their latest versions. Like I think there's a lot of it that goes into what's it called when it's like open copyright, Creative Commons
Yeah.
style stuff.
Oh yeah, I
I don't
just
know the
totally
ins and outs.
blanked on yes, but
Yeah,
um yeah, it's basically like freeware or whatever.
that's yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty
That's
cool.
not the exact term, but yeah. Um, okay, next question. Sorry. Just juggling. Baby Cuteness has joined us for the second part of this, people. So juggling her right now. Um, do you recommend teaching children with learning disabilities a foreign language? And if so, how would you approach that?
Ooh, okay, I don't know if you saw my face light up. I'm so glad that someone's asked this question. Because before I started my business, I was working for 2 years in secondary schools as a learner support assistant. So I was actually teaching small groups, taking them out of like the main lessons and teaching them languages in small groups or one-on-one. And I remember really being quite like pleasantly surprised and blown away sometimes by how well some of those students would do with languages. There was one boy in particular who always comes to mind when I think about, the questions or variants of this question. And he, people were like, not campaigning, that's an intense word. But people were really wanting him to not take language lessons, and we're trying to take that away so that he could have extra this or extra that. And I understand why, but he was so good at French. He really like shone and really came out of his shell when we would have our French lessons together. And so there is definitely no reason not to teach a language to anyone with learning difficulties, because you just don't know how it's going to be received. And it could be like a door opening for some children. So absolutely, 100%, I recommend give it a go, see how it goes. And remember as well, it's not always about all of the words that you teach being remembered. It could just be simply that they love it and they enjoy it and they're getting something from it. And if you feel that it's productive in that sense, then keep going. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Because I think that sometimes can be discouraging with parents or individuals, even adults who have a learning disability. Think, oh, well, I struggled with school because of XYZ. I could never learn a language. And I personally don't think that's true, but I think it's good to hear it from experts or people in the field like you who've had the experience to know that it is possible.
And it can become, you're right, actually, to bring adults into that, because it can become such a block for adults. If at school you did experience that, where maybe you were taken out of foreign language lessons to do more English or more something else. And then you think, okay, well, obviously I'm not a language person, right? That was never presented to me as a thing I could do. But actually, there's no reason why you can't give it a go. And especially I find people with dyslexia who maybe feel that, well, I struggle with English, therefore I struggle with language, therefore I'm not going to expose myself to extra language, right? Why would I do that to myself? But there's loads of ways that you can learn that don't involve reading and writing. There's so many great audio courses that you can take in the podcast list. There's a lot out there that you can do that plays to your strengths, right? So, and when you're an adult and you know your own strengths and you know your own sort of weaknesses and things that maybe don't gel as well for you, then play to those strengths and work with yourself rather than against it. So absolutely, any age, definitely give it a go.
I love that you brought up dyslexia because actually I have dyslexia. And
There we go. And
a
you've
lot of
learned
people,
Spanish.
yep, I've learned
Exhibit
Spanish.
A.
I've studied lots of different languages. And yeah, dyslexia was a hiccup, but it never stopped me. And so I think some people, when I tell them that I have it, they're like, when? Because they expect people who have a learning disability to struggle more. But I think if you don't let yourself, if you don't let it be a handicap, it's not going to be a handicap. You can find
Yeah.
a way to push through anything. That's at least my philosophy in life. People might feel differently, but I personally feel that if you really want something, nothing's going to hold you back. Okay, so next question is, um, what would you say to those who, sorry, lots of, give it a few seconds. What would you say to those who have tried to learn a language and are struggling and just kind of want to quit?
Okay, there's a couple of questions that I would want those people to ask themselves. Firstly, why did you start? Because sometimes that reminder of that initial reason for starting can spark a bit of motivation, put a bit of fire up you to keep going. And secondly, why do you want to stop? Is the, let's be extreme and call it pain, is the pain now and the difficulty and the struggle now really worth stopping and not feeling that to not gain what you're potentially going to gain in the future? Or actually, is it worth sticking with it and getting through that? And that's the second thing I would encourage you to ask yourselves on that question, because it's, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, right? Language learning, it's as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. It's not easy. It's not quick in the sense that we expect it to be because of a book cover, right? Like that will tell us, oh, it's Russian in 6 weeks, and we think, oh, there we go. I'm going to speak Russian in just 6 weeks. I'm going to be like as good at Russian as I am, and it's amazing. I'm going to be fluent Russian speaker less than 2 months from now. Give me the book. Let's go. And then at the end of the book, you can say some stuff, but you're not quite where you were, right? Those expectations are misaligned. And that's often what the problem is. If there is a struggle, it's a kind of misalignment of expectation. So just, really showing yourself a bit of self-compassion, that it's amazing that you started in the first place. And it would be a shame now to quit. But if you need a moment of pause, if you need a little break, take that pause, because there's nothing worse than, well, first of all, I suppose we could say the one thing worse would be to just quit point blank, right? There we go, I'm done. The second thing, the second worst option would be to be like, well, I heard Lindsay say on Sam's podcast that I need to just ask myself and find my motivation and keep going. So I'm just going to keep going, and then like struggle through like gritted teeth and, really, really hate it. That equally is not going to be good. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your actual progress. It's not going to be good for your relationship with languages, which can last and can linger as well, and affect other opportunities down the line where you might need to learn another language. So what I would say is to take a moment to reassess and to really think what it is that you're stuck on, what it is that you can maybe change and adjust to make it not feel as difficult and not feel as much of a struggle. And finally, I just today at lunch, I took myself out to lunch today and I finished my book, because I've been reading this book for ages. Because when you read a book and you get really into it and you don't want to, you want to take it all in at once, but you want to also pace it out because it's so good. I've just finished the book called How We Learn by Benedict Carey. Amazing book. And if there's one takeaway overall, it's that we need to chill out about learning, right? School, the concept of school that we think of as learning, is really very new. compared to human existence. And pre-school, pre-education being a thing in the way that we know it, we were still learning. We were learning, when to forage. We were learning what berries were poisonous and which ones weren't. We were learning. Learning is in our nature. And so actually, when we're focusing too much on, but I don't remember the words, we're blocking ourselves, right? We're getting ourselves stuck there. And so just reminding yourself that this is a really natural process. There's going to be stuff that doesn't stick. That's okay. But the stuff that does stick, cool, keep with it. Keep flowing forwards. Change the pace as you need and just enjoy along the way. Make sure that what you're doing is enjoyable. And I hope with that, you can come unstuck.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
When I left, no, it's true. But so my mom was a school teacher. And so when I left for university, my mom always said, don't let your college classes, your university classes get in the way of your education. And I was just like, what does that mean? It took me a second to realize what she was saying. And that sometimes we get so focused on the traditional or the new style of education, the tests, exams, textbooks, those sorts of things. We forget how much we can just learn by being out in the world, by being part of the world and just experiencing life. So I really love that point because, yeah, it's true. Sometimes we just need to give ourselves some grace and just take a break and say, you know what? I need to take a breather, but I'm going to get back to this. And not because if we get to the point where we're frustrated, I feel like we just shut down and we don't want to go back to it. But if we say, you know what? I need a breather. So that's happened with me with a lot of things. Thanks to baby cuteness, I've had to take a break on some things and rejuggle things. There's things I had in my life that I've had to pause, and that's fine. I'll get back to them. Time of life thing. And that's, I think that's a really fantastic point you made. And I want to look at that book now. That book sounds awesome.
Yes. So good. So good. I'm going to go straight back to the beginning.
I love books like that. Where you read through them and you're like, wait, I need to do it again because I'm sure I missed something. I
feel like I should have had a highlighter and lots of dog ears on the pages,
Oh yeah, that's why I'll get audiobooks and then halfway through the audiobook I'll buy the hard copy. And my husband's like, why are we buying a hard copy if you have the audiobook? I'm like, I want to highlight it. And he's like, you're such a nerd. I'm like, yep, I am. It's okay.
It is okay.
Okay. It is. Yes. It's fine. You know what? That's why you buy a hard copy. So you can highlight it. But okay. So next question. And this, I had a couple people ask the same question. They worded it differently. So, what would be your number one advice when starting a new language?
Okay. My immediate answer is going to be really disappointing and really annoying. It depends.
That's actually good though, because I think there's so much nuance. So
there is. And the biggest nuance, like I said earlier, like you center yourself. You have to put yourself at the center of this experience so that you can tailor it to you and to your way of learning and your needs. In terms of this specifically, I'm thinking, first of all, why do you want to learn this language? What's it for, right? Is it just for pleasure because you love learning languages? Is it that you have a trip planned and it's a really casual holiday? You don't need to be fluent, but you just want to be able to get by with the basics. Is it that you are moving to this country? Different story in all of those scenarios as to what my advice would be. So overall, when I really think about my own experience now, what it tends to look like is starting very toe in the water. I've never been one to dive into the middle of the swimming pool in real life. Like I'm always very much like, let me just get in at the side, one foot at a time, and then we swim, And it's a bit like that now when I start a language, because I don't initially start with goals or a plan. I just dip my toe in and I just see and explore, what do I feel like, what am I enjoying before I set those goals, before I set that plan, so that I can decide what I want it to look like, how quickly I want to progress, how much time I want to spend and devote to it. And so that is how I've started the last sort of 2 or 3 languages that I've studied to a decent level. And it's just really allowed a lot more flexibility, which, as we've seen, is one of the core elements of this. So yeah, if I needed to give one piece of advice, that would be it. But the overall is, it depends.
Well, you know what? Depends is sometimes a very good answer because there's a lot of life that is conditional. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think we all, especially in this day and age where so much is at our fingertips, we kind of get impatient and we just want quick, clear answers. And there's
Yeah.
not always quick, clear answers to life.
And you know as well, like that often can lead us to feeling so overwhelmed. That idea of, if you just Google learn Korean, oh my life, the results you're going to get, there's going to be so much. How do you even begin? How do you know where to start? So I totally understand that overwhelm can be exhausting. But yeah, when you Google learn Korean, how you start is you have a little click around, you allow yourself a bit of exploration. And if you're thinking, oh, but I already know that I want to make progress, I already know that I want to take this language quite far, then allow yourself like a day, a weekend, a week, a month of exploration where you're trying out different resources, you're testing out different routines, you're finding a bit of a balance and seeing how it all fits. And, make that time like playtime, essentially, so that you get it sort of marked on the calendar if that's what you need, so that when you feel like, okay, I found my groove, I found my resources, I found my kind of routine with this, now I'm ready to go. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, so I kind of want to share a story,
Okay.
quick, and then we'll wrap up. But my niece, in high school, she had a friend who was Korean, and she got into K-pop, and so she started wanting to learn Korean, and so she just decided on her own. Her school didn't have a Korean class. She was going to teach herself Korean, and she did, to the extent where she would hang out with her Korean friend, and he barely knew some because he grew up in the US and didn't really care. And his mom would give him a hard time because his American friend spoke better Korean than he did. Now she has a job. She is an editor for some Korean like comics. She makes sure that their translation into English is good. And so she checks the translations. She's actually not gone to college, never went to college, but because she was passionate about something, taught herself it, she now has this whole career. And I don't think if anyone had ever asked her when she was in high school, hey, she would have never come up with that because it was just kind of a natural evolution of something she loved.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And you never know, like, where a kind of spark is going to come from. I love it when it comes from language. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. And please send me all of those links and any other information you want to share. I want to give you a chance right now to do a little shout out. Where can people find you if they want to reach out and learn more from you and work with you?
So easiest place is straight to my website, which is lindsaydoeslanguages.com. It's Lindsay, Lindsay, doeslanguages.com. And yeah, everything is there that you need to know about how we can work together, the various other kind of self-study mini courses and things that I have available. And yeah, lots of free resources too, blogs, podcasts, videos, all of that kind of stuff. You can find all of it at the website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this and helping out with answering with listeners' questions I've been getting for actually quite a bit. So I'm really grateful. Lindsay actually found me. She reached out to me. and was a huge blessing because I had been looking to share more information about this sort of stuff with you guys. So I'm really grateful to her for finding me so that I could share her with you.
Me too. Thank you. I'm glad I found you.
Hopefully, if you have some interest in learning a language and want to develop your communication skills when you are traveling, these last two episodes will give you the tools and resources and confidence to go out and pursue those dreams. And I want to just reiterate what we kind of talked about already in this episode. It doesn't matter if you struggled in the past or you've had difficulty learning languages. Everybody can learn a language. You may not become fluent in 6 weeks or overnight, and you might have to try lots of different methods, but don't quit and make it fun. I hope you all take that opportunity. And if you want to reach out to Lindsay and work with her, she is fantastic. I really enjoyed collaborating with her and interviewing her for these episodes. And that is what I've got for y'all this week. I will be back. I'm working on some more collabs and panels and whatnot, so stay tuned. As always, you are listening to Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife.